So with these fake ashes that a funeral home was trying to pass off as real ashes, is that illegal to do?
It is illegal. Yes. It is illegal. I mean, so it's not just the fact that they it's fraudulent, of course, to let folks believe that they are getting the remains of their loved ones, but also they mishandled these bodies. So this particular sort of they sold themselves as we're this green alternative company, but they actually didn't have their own equipment, so they outsourced it to two different funeral homes that had the cremation equipment. So far, 189 bodies have been discovered by the FBI.
Gosh.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, this was a huge fraudulent situation, and of course, it's there. So they will be facing criminal charges and potentially so on the state level and the federal level because the FBI is investigating. But then civil lawsuits, 13 have been filed so far, and the problem for these folks though who are suing, it's definitely a solid cause of action. They can be very lucrative, good cases, but here, these people, they're out of business. They were pocketing the money and, and they were spending it and not paying these cremation companies to do what was supposed to be done. Ooh. And so, like, one of the companies that they did business with was a funeral home, sued them and got a judgment against them for like $20-some thousand. And so it's just a mess. There's not going to be any money there to get. When you win, the judgment's not going to be worth anything. But it's a terrible situation. These people, they flew to Hawaii, chartered a boat, spread these ashes, and realized this doesn't look right. And came back and they did a little experiment, and it turned out it was the concrete mix, and they made a little bit of concrete with it. That's when they called law enforcement, and they got involved and tested it. And sure enough, it was just a concrete mix.
And did you say what they're doing with the bodies? I heard they were like, there's 189 bodies that this apparently was.
They're just tossing them on their property, I think. And finally, the smell got to be so bad. I don't even think they're burying.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
This happened somewhere in the South before where they had a bunch of bodies, and I think in the back of it there was like remember that? And they'd just be out in the woods in this creek area. They're just, your loved one would die, and they just throw the body outside because they didn't want to, they were trying to save money doing this stuff. And,
Dang.
So is there any prison time, or is it more of a civil thing?
Oh yeah, I mean there have been people. There have been people who've done this before who got huge, up to 20 years in prison for this if they end up bringing federal charges. Now state charges are much lower; they're like 2 years. But the last sort of case with any notoriety of this type, they brought in the federal charges as well and ended up with a 20-year sentence. So they could be looking at some really serious charges.
All right, let's go on to the Robert De Niro case. He took the stand this week. He has a former assistant that basically like a hostile work environment, and he admitted to like berating her and treating her poorly. Can you walk us through that? Because
she was doing things that were messed up to the company. That's why I was so mad. Is what he's saying.
Right.
But then he got like aggravated in a courtroom.
He can't help but be aggravated everywhere he goes. It seems like. And so, like, if you're at a workplace, I mean, where's the line? And if something goes from just being a bad environment to like maybe hostile or like an illegal type situation?
So it kind of varies from one jurisdiction to another. He happens to be in a very strict jurisdiction in New York where employment laws are really, really pro-employee. It's not the case in most of the country. But, she worked for him for 11 years. Her name's Graham Robinson. And it seemed like everything went well. He promoted her all the way from kind of entry level, his assistant, all the way up to VP of production and finance. But what happened was that his current girlfriend, I don't know if they're married, I think it's a girlfriend, his current partner that he just recently had a baby with, didn't like this girl and felt like Graham had a secret, she called it, I think, a fabricated relationship with him, like in her head. And it sounded to me like she was probably jealous of this, long-term relationship that he had, was very close with this woman. He said that she alleged, so when she was fired because, when the partner starts disliking her or whatever, they start to scrutinize what she was doing. And they were like, look, she was using his credit cards to buy her personal food and groceries. She was using his frequent flyer miles to travel all over the place. And so they sued her to begin with. De Niro sued her and his production company. Then she counterclaimed against him for even more money and started bringing up all these allegations about that he demanded that she be on call around the clock. And that one time she was at a family member's funeral and he kept blowing up her phone because he needed her to order a bus ticket for his son.
A bus ticket?
Yeah, I know, a bus ticket. I was like, that's kind of odd. But, and then another time she was just saying, like, it's very common that he wants a cocktail at like 11 or 12 o'clock at night from Nobu, which he's a part owner of, and he calls her to go fetch it. And, she was just saying he was basically not compensating her fairly for all this round-the-clock work. He may get into some trouble there, if he wasn't paying her for being on call but demanded 24-hour availability. You can actually get into some federal wage and hour violations that haven't even been brought at this point. This is just a lawsuit between the two of them. So, I don't think that just yelling at her in and of itself would typically, in most jurisdictions, that would not get any damages. I mean, you can be sort of an angry boss if you want to, as long as you're not, basically centering your comments around something that's a protected class, like her gender, her race, her religion, that sort of thing.
If you're not
but in New York,
specifically addressing
it is very, very strict. They have some super local ordinances about employment that, he may end up, and it just looks bad. You're not a nice person if you're screaming at somebody, calling them at funerals and, stuff like that. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a hostile work environment. Hostile work environment typically doesn't mean hostility in the way you think, like angry. Mm-hmm. It means like sexual content and that sort of thing. Like one sort of classic early hostile work environment that people, when it were like, wow, okay, was like you're a female and you work in an auto mechanic shop and the guys have, like Playboy posters all over the place and are constantly making sexual remarks to you. That's a hostile work environment.
Oh,
Your boss being a grouch, not a hostile work environment.
So if because you think hostile, I've always thought
I did too.
That when you're constantly, it's aggressive work environment where you constantly feel like there's a lot of yelling and intensity, but that has nothing to do with it.
Right. You can be sort of, and we've, the trend in employment culture has been to get away from that sort of thing. I mean, it used to be that was pretty common for, bosses to be.
Squid, get the hell out of here, you loser!
Right.
You're an idiot.
Right.
I'm all right with that, huh?
Yeah, but now.
Are you in some sort of management position?
No, but you can do the same thing.
I can start. Oh, good. I can start yelling at Squid.
Quick grab my butt, guys. I'm in a hostile work environment.
Like, there's one office here, one room where they have a calendar with like a Hawaiian tropic type thing going on. Is that a hostile work environment?
That probably in and of itself would not be enough. You would have to really kind of inundate the person.
It's a Hooters calendar.
It's a Hooters calendar, and it's my office. It's not coming down.
I didn't say who it was.
You don't walk down the stairs anyway.
I do. Sometimes I have to because Squid won't do it for me. I did demand a lot of him.
Okay. Now, some of his comments, though, she says he was, he called her the B word a lot, and he called her a snippy, petulant, spoiled brat. He was like. But I mean, none of that really, to me, was all that bad. If she can show that it was sex, there was a sexist element to it, that she was treated differently because she was female, and she does she hints at that so far in the testimony, and we're early in the case, but she says that he treated her male counterpart very differently and paid him more. And if that's the case, then she may have something with the hostile work environment. She's got to show it had something to do with a protected class. But he says the male counterpart is like comparing apples and oranges because that guy was basically his personal trainer. He's much older, and he's worked for him for decades.
And Lisa, so you're basically saying that Robert De Niro calls his assistant the B word, and he can get away with that and not have the lawsuit?
Yeah, typically that's okay.
Squid, you're a bitch!
It's even more okay when a guy calls another guy that, right?
Totally fine.
Actually, Matt's made he did it during a rap battle, Lisa, against Squid. It was really good. And he's the reigning rap battle champion. Although Squid's a very good rapper, Matt did such a great job. But you want to tell Lisa the handle?
It is at Troy is a bitch.
Because Squidward's real name is Troy.
Yeah.
And it got a lot of people following it really quickly.
Is that cyberbullying?
Is that hostile when they create fake accounts with your name in it?
And I like that name, Troy. That's a good name.
I hate it.
I tend to also when we post photos as a show,
I tend to tag Troy's a bitch in the photos.
Or yeah, right.
Yeah, I'll click somewhere in the photo, and so that Instagram is still tagged.
I love it.
I think Troy should embrace that. I think that's got some legs. That's good stuff.
I agree. It's memorable.
Yeah, it
at
has
least.
more clout than my page. So.
If that's what makes him famous, I'm quitting.
Yeah, right.
Right,
We've made
so
another
Troy.
person.
Right.
Another
Right.
person famous. Well, Lisa, you're awesome. She's the best at what she does. Hold on one second. If you're ever interested on the job, contact her right away at hireaheavyweight.com. She's one of the top 100 attorneys in the entire country, which is insane because there's a million attorneys, literally over a million attorneys. She's top 100.